So you may have seen or heard claims like this: more women on corporate boards boosts company performance. Performance is usually measured as return on investment or return on equity or some other metric like that. To me, these claims never pass the smell test. This study, for example, claims that companies with the highest percentages of women on boards have higher returns on equity of 53% and return on capital of 66%. Now, if a publicly listed company could significantly boost its return on equity and invested capital just by adding a few female board members, companies would all rush out tomorrow and do so, and their shareholders would be demanding it. But the reality is they are not doing that. In fact, it's very easy to find articles lamenting the slow progress of hiring women for corporate boards. Why? Is the patriarchy so maniacal that they will forgo higher investor returns just to keep themselves in power? I have my doubts. But go back to this study. Companies with more women board directors experience higher financial performance. Notice that there's no explicit claim of causality in the title, although later on in the report we're told that clearly financial measures excel where women serve on corporate boards. This Catalyst study again demonstrates the very strong correlation between corporate financial performance and gender diversity. We know that diversity, well managed, produces better results, and smart companies appreciate that diversifying their boards with women can lead to more independence, innovation and good governance and maximise their company's performance. But does gender diversity cause better corporate performance, or do companies with higher performance have more diverse hiring policies? The problem is, of course, you can find individual studies that claim it's the addition of women to boards that increase performance, and you can also find studies that show increasing the number of women on boards leads to poorer corporate performance. Anyone can cherry pick a particular study to support their opinion. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say that the addition of more women to corporate boards makes absolutely no difference, positive or negative. If board seats are granted based on merit, why would there be any difference? The types of people appointed to boards will be similar in their experience and achievements. So how can we make sense of this claim that more women on corporate boards leads to better corporate performance? Well, perhaps instead of cherry-picking studies to support a point of view, how about a meta-study of hundreds of studies on the topic? And the good folks at Wharton Business School looked at 2 meta-studies in a report released last year. Does gender diversity on boards really boost company performance? Many commentators suggest that gender diversity in the corporate boardroom improves company performance because of the different points of view and experience it offers. However, rigorous peer-reviewed academic research paints a different picture. Despite the intuitive appeal of the argument that gender diversity on the board improves company performance, research suggests otherwise. Now, I have to differ here in that I don't think it's an intuitively appealing argument. I agree that viewpoint diversity is a good idea, but just having more women doesn't necessarily result in more viewpoint diversity. Anyway, results of numerous academic studies of the topic suggest that the presence of more female board members does not much improve or worsen a firm's performance. In this opinion piece, Wharton management professor Catherine Klein summarises academic research on the topic and discusses the possible reasons and implications for these surprising findings. Klein is also the Vice Dean of the Wharton Social Impact Initiative. Spoiler alert, rigorous peer-reviewed studies suggest that companies do not perform better when they have women on the board, nor do they perform worse. Depending on which meta-analysis you read, board gender diversity either has a very weak relationship with board performance or no relationship at all. Well, colour me surprised. So the author of this piece, Catherine Klein, looked at 2 meta-studies, the first involving over 140 studies of over 90,000 firms in more than 30 countries, and the second looked at 20 studies published in peer-reviewed academic journals. And the results? There is no clear business case. The results of these 2 meta-analyses, summarising numerous rigorous original peer-reviewed studies, suggest that the relationship between broad gender diversity and company performance is either non-existent, effectively zero, or very weakly positive. Further, there is no evidence available to suggest that the addition or presence of women on the board actually causes a change in company performance. In sum, the research results suggest there is no business case for or against appointing women to corporate boards. Women should be appointed to boards for reasons of gender equality, but not because gender diversity on boards leads to improvements in company performance. Now, I'm not sure what she means when she says women should be appointed to boards for reasons of gender equality. If people are being appointed to boards based on individual merit and not their gender, then that is gender equality. If she means more women should be appointed just to get more women on boards, then that's the exact opposite of gender equality. That's preferential treatment based on gender. But anyway, Post and Byron 2015 found that firms with more female directors tend to have slightly higher accounting returns, such as return on assets and return on equity, than firms with fewer female directors. The relationship was statistically significant, suggesting it wasn't a chance effect, but it was tiny. Statistical significance depends in part on sample size, so a tiny effect is statistically significant if the sample is big enough. The average correlation between board gender diversity and firm accounting performance, Post and Byron found, was 0.047. This suggests that gender diversity on the board explains about 0.2% of the variance in company performance. The average correlation between board gender diversity and firm market performance, such as stock performance, shareholder returns, was even smaller and was not statistically significant. So 0.2% of the variance in company performance, or in other words, basically nothing. Pletzer and his colleagues, 2015, found that the average correlation between the percentage of women on the board and firm performance was small, 0.01, and not statistically significant. It's worth noting that even if the meta-analyses revealed a stronger relationship between board gender diversity and firm performance, we couldn't conclude that board gender diversity causes firm performance. To establish causal effects, you need to conduct a randomized control trial. But that's impossible here. We can't randomly assign board members to companies. And that's important, as I said before. Even if you do find correlations, you can't imply causation. Gender diversity in the boardroom. Commentators often suggest that corporate boards that include women will make better decisions than boards that include only men. The argument is that women differ from men in their knowledge, experiences, and values, and thus bring novel information and perspectives to the board. They increase the board's cognitive variety. The greater a board's cognitive variety, the theory goes, the more options it is likely to consider, and the more deeply it is likely to debate those options. We don't know exactly why this theoretical logic doesn't hold among corporate boards. It is worth noting that gender diversity in other kinds of work teams is not significantly positively related to performance either. Despite popular press accounts that suggest that teams high in gender diversity outperform those composed only of men or only of women, rigorous research does not support this conclusion. Meta-analyses linking team gender diversity to team performance reach much the same conclusion as meta-analyses linking board gender diversity to firm performance. That is, the relationship between team gender diversity and team performance is tiny. Well, again, I don't know why that theoretical logic should hold. It's not like boardrooms are one gigantic ongoing brainstorming session on random topics. Boards have a specific job pertaining to the governing of a specific business. Your unique experience of volunteering for a year in Africa to help build a school for impoverished children, although you were probably just in the way most of the time, probably isn't going to help much in governing the running of a clothing retailer. This is a point echoed in some sense by Klein. Whilst research indicates that in general male and female adults differ somewhat in their values, experiences and knowledge, and the differences are not huge, it's not clear that male and female board members differ all that much in their values, experiences and knowledge. After all, both male and female board members are likely to be selected for their professional accomplishments, experience and competence. If male and female board members are fairly similar in their values, experience and knowledge, the addition of women to an all-male board may not increase the board's cognitive variety as one might expect at first blush. Well, I wouldn't have expected it to in the first place. The author goes on to talk about studies on effects of women and corporate responsibility and the effects of CEOs' gender and corporate performance. All reach basically the same conclusion. So the next time you hear claims about how we need more women on boards because companies perform better, remember to be skeptical of the sources. Are the proponents citing one or two studies that support their case, or are they citing meta-studies that contain dozens, or in some cases, hundreds of studies? Are they citing studies conducted by consulting firms like McKinsey, who for a price will find any conclusion you want them to? Or are they citing peer-reviewed academic studies? And lastly, are they conflating correlation with causation? I'll see you next time.